On Thanksgiving morning, I woke up in my Chicago apartment with the same familiar weight in my chest. Another year, another family gathering. This time, we were meeting at the Breakers, a high-end resort in Palm Beach, Florida, our annual tradition, fully funded by my grandfather. I exhaled sharply, giving my suitcase one final check before glancing at my reflection in the mirror. My name is Helen Walker. I am 33 years old, a research director at a pharmaceutical company, earning $160,000 a year, and living on my own in Chicago. Over the years, I have built my wealth through careful investments, ensuring that I never have to rely on anyone. Money is important, but dignity is even more precious. Those words from my grandfather have always guided me. A self-made businessman who built his fortune in construction, he taught me everything about finance, asset management, and self-reliance. He is the only one in my family who truly understands me. My sister, Catherine, is a different story. Once a flight attendant, she now plays the role of a glamorous housewife, raising her 7-year-old daughter. But behind the image of a perfect life is a reality propped up by our grandfather's money. Their high mortgage, car loans, and their daughter's private school tuition, it is all covered by his financial support. Yet Catherine never lets that show. Her social media is an endless stream of luxury, designer handbags, extravagant dinners, vacations at exclusive resorts. She seems desperate to project a life that is far from the truth. My parents, George and Margaret, are no different. They enjoy their retirement in Florida, but none of it would be possible without my grandfather's continued generosity. Their retirement home deposit, monthly expenses, everything depends on him. They have always favored Catherine, something that has never changed since childhood. I was left to fend for myself, working part-time jobs and earning scholarships to pay for college. Meanwhile, my sister had everything handed to her: study abroad programs, an all-expenses-paid education, a comfortable life. That imbalance has never faded from my memory. Stand on your own 2 feet. That was another lesson from my grandfather. I took those words to heart. I built my career in the pharmaceutical industry, made smart financial moves, and created a stable, independent life. My apartment in Chicago, with its skyline view, is something I earned, not something gifted to me. I live well but within reason, unlike my family, who pretend their wealth is limitless. I closed my suitcase and took a deep breath. Every Thanksgiving, the cracks in our family only grew deeper: Catherine's obsession with appearances, my parents' blatant favoritism, my grandfather's quiet concern. This year, things were on the verge of breaking. As the taxi took me to the airport, I thought about our destination. The Breakers, an iconic 5-star resort, its Italian Renaissance architecture a symbol of old money prestige. Rooms cost over $800 per night. The Thanksgiving dinner alone was priced at $200 per person. It was a grand setting, but beneath it all, my family's financial reality was fragile. My sister's curated lifestyle, my parents' retirement, all of it was balanced precariously on my grandfather's support. This year, the illusion was close to collapsing. Everyone knew it, but no one wanted to acknowledge it. Through the taxi window, I watched the palm trees sway gently as I rode from Palm Beach International Airport to the resort. The Florida sun cast a warm glow, giving the illusion of a perfect Thanksgiving. By the time I arrived, the afternoon air was crisp and pleasant. I was the last to check in, pulling my navy Rimowa suitcase through the grand entrance. The chandeliers sparkled overhead, the polished marble floor echoing with quiet footsteps. Around me, other guests were already settled into their holiday routines. As I approached the front desk, I noticed my parents in the distance. They were standing in a quiet corner, deep in conversation. My mother wore a new resort dress, and my father looked relaxed in casual but expensive attire. The moment they saw me, they quickly turned away. "Miss Walker, I am sorry, but I cannot seem to find your reservation," the front desk attendant said, her voice apologetic as she scanned the system again. "I see the reservations for your family members, but—" The sharp sound of heels clicking against the marble floor interrupted her. I turned to see Catherine approaching, her face lit with a smug expression. A Hermes Birkin bag rested on her arm, and a Cartier watch glinted on her wrist. "Oh, Helen, you finally made it," she said, her voice laced with fake warmth, loud enough for people nearby to notice. The attendant continued typing, her confusion growing, while a few guests subtly glanced in our direction. "How strange that your reservation is missing," Catherine mused, her voice just a little louder than necessary. Her Louis Vuitton suitcase stood beside my navy one, as if even our luggage had to reflect our differences. Then she stepped closer, lowering her voice just enough. "Actually," wearing a victorious smirk, Catherine's voice carried through the lobby like a cruel punchline. "I only booked rooms for the family," she announced, her tone dripping with satisfaction. "One for me, my husband, and Amy, and another for Mom and Dad. You know, for the real family." A brief silence fell over the space. The front desk staff hesitated, unsure how to respond. My parents, already positioned at a safe distance, turned their backs even more, as if pretending not to witness the humiliation unfolding in front of them. I took a slow, deep breath, keeping my expression steady. "I see," I said, my voice even. "Then I'll leave." The words came out smoother than I expected. Adjusting my grip on my suitcase, I gave a polite nod to the front desk clerk, then reached for my phone. Opening my taxi app, I requested a ride. "Wait," Catherine blurted out, her voice tightening. But I was already done with the conversation. Without another word, I turned toward the exit, ignoring the weight of watching eyes. The lobby had fallen into silence, my footsteps the only sound echoing across the marble floor. Catherine, momentarily caught off guard, quickly recovered, holding on to her smug expression. Our parents remained frozen in place, unsure whether to intervene or continue their passive retreat. As I stepped outside, the bright Florida sun cast long shadows on the pavement. The breeze rustled through the palm trees, the scent of salt water carried with it. Thanksgiving at the Breakers had lasted less than 10 minutes. Yet, as I stood there waiting for my taxi, I felt something unexpected: relief. A strange, liberating sensation filled my chest, as if a weight I had carried for years had finally lifted. "Stand on your own 2 feet." Grandfather's words echoed in my mind once again, but for the first time, I felt like I truly understood them. My gaze drifted to the grand facade of the hotel, its historical architecture standing as a monument to old wealth and prestige. Lavishly decorated for Thanksgiving, the building was filled with families enjoying their holiday, families that were nothing like mine. Through the glass windows of the lobby, I caught sight of Amy. My niece stood fidgeting near Catherine, her tiny frame swallowed by an expensive designer dress that no child should be wearing. She was looking for me. Every year, it had become a quiet tradition for me to bring her a gift. This year, I had carefully chosen a pearl hair clip, something simple yet elegant. It was still wrapped neatly inside my suitcase, untouched. The taxi pulled up, and I slid into the back seat. "Palm Beach International Airport," I told the driver. As we pulled away, I tapped my phone screen, searching for the next available flight back to Chicago. Thanksgiving airfare was notoriously expensive, but I did not care. The price of a ticket was nothing compared to the emotional cost I had paid every year for this holiday. Through the rearview mirror, I watched the Breakers shrink into the distance, its pristine image shimmering under the afternoon sun. It stood as a symbol of our family's carefully constructed illusion, an illusion that, today, had finally begun to crack. There was no going back now. Inside the taxi, the hum of the engine provided a welcome silence. The leather seats were cool against my skin, the air conditioning keeping the space comfortably chilled. Outside, Palm Beach's perfectly manicured scenery passed by in a blur: lined palm trees, sprawling mansions, glimpses of the sparkling Atlantic. Normally, I would have admired the view. Today, it felt distant, almost foreign. Without hesitation, I dialed my grandfather's number. The phone rang longer than usual before he picked up. "Helen." His voice came through, calm as always. "What is it?" "I have something to tell you." I kept my voice neutral, sticking to the facts. I told him everything: how my reservation had been forgotten, how Catherine had made her grand declaration in front of everyone, how my parents had chosen to turn their backs rather than intervene. I explained how I had walked away. I heard a slight shift in his breathing. For a moment, silence stretched between us. He was angry, more than angry, but he was holding it in. "I see," he finally said, his voice low and controlled. "I'll take care of it." That was all he said before the call ended. Moments later, my phone lit up with a flurry of notifications. Catherine had called 10 times in the span of 15 minutes. Then came the messages. "Catherine, Helen, Amy was looking forward to seeing you. Do you even think about her feelings? Catherine, my friends are coming for dinner tonight. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? I was going to post our Thanksgiving pictures. Now I have to explain this disaster." Her texts became more frantic, filled with rapid accusations about how I was ruining her holiday. Then came the emails from my parents. "Mother, we could have added another room, but Catherine is right. We prioritize the real family. You are independent now, aren't you? If you can afford it, why not book your own room? Why are you being so emotional?" The next email was even colder. "Father, Catherine has a family, a husband and child. You understand that, right? Can't you just put up with it for one holiday? This is why you always have problems, Helen. You only think about yourself. You never consider the family." And then, the final blow: "Mother, we had everything planned for social media. Our Thanksgiving was supposed to be perfect. Do you know how much this messes up our photos?" I stared at the screen. They did not care about me. They never had. They were not upset because I left. They were upset because I had ruined their image. I turned off my phone and leaned back against the seat. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows over Palm Beach. In the distance, I could see the ocean, its waves rolling in, unconcerned with the petty dramas of people like us. For the first time in years, I felt at peace. The messages kept flooding in, one after another, a relentless stream of accusations, pleas, and guilt-tripping. "You ruined everything, Helen! We were supposed to take family photos with Amy. Do you know how upset she is? Amy was so excited to see you. She's been waiting all year. How could you do this to her?" Catherine clung to her usual tactic, using her daughter as a weapon, leveraging her innocence to manipulate me into compliance. But the words no longer held any power. The same strategy, the same tired guilt trips, all wrapped in artificial concern. Then came the next wave, this time from our mother. "Catherine is struggling, Helen. You should know better than anyone that a child's education is expensive." A blatant attempt to shame me, as if I had not put myself through school with my own hands while Catherine had everything handed to her. The irony of it all settled in as my taxi neared the airport. For the first time, their intentions were as clear as day, stripped of any pretense. They had shown their true colors without even realizing it. And then, just before I stepped out of the cab, an email from grandfather. "I am proud of you. I understand everything." The words hit me harder than I expected. A lump formed in my throat, but it was not sadness. It was something else, something lighter. A quiet, steady resolve settling into place. My phone kept vibrating, my sister's name flashing on the screen with increasing urgency. My parents' emails turned from indifference to desperation. "Helen, you are tearing this family apart. We could have gotten you a room, but Catherine is right. We had to prioritize real family. You make more than enough money. You could have booked your own stay instead of acting like a victim." Even my father, who rarely involved himself, had written something particularly cruel. "Catherine has a husband and a child. You have nothing but your job. Do you really think you matter as much?" I closed the emails without responding. By the time I walked into the airport terminal, I felt something shift inside me. This was the moment. The moment I was truly free. I booked my flight back to Chicago, found my gate, and sat down in the waiting area. 30 minutes later, as I settled into my seat on the plane, another email from grandfather came through. This time, he had copied the entire family. This is my final decision. The message carried his usual formal tone, but beneath it was a weight no one could ignore. Today, an incident occurred that shamed the Walker name. The way Helen was treated was inexcusable. Effective immediately, I am cutting all financial support to George, Margaret, and Catherine. I could almost hear the panic setting in. Let me remind you that your lives, your homes, your expenses, your luxuries, are funded entirely by my generosity. Those who value appearance over family, who squander resources without gratitude, have lost the privilege of my support. The implications were clear. My sister's perfect lifestyle, my parents' comfortable retirement, it was all over. My phone exploded with calls before I even finished reading. Catherine's voicemails were frantic, her voice rising in desperation. Helen, please. Talk to him. You can fix this. Her entire world revolved around the monthly $30,000 she received from grandfather. Without it, her financial house of cards would collapse in an instant. My parents, too, had dropped their cold demeanor. Helen, please, this is about our future. We will lose the deposit for our retirement home. Do you understand what that means? Your father's medical bills. What are we supposed to do? My mother's last message even contained an apology, though it was empty and meaningless. I am sorry for what I said earlier, but you have to understand, this is a crisis. You must help us. I switched off my phone and looked out the window. The sky stretched endlessly, a vast expanse of white clouds beneath us. For the first time in years, I felt weightless. Catherine's perfect Instagram Thanksgiving would not happen this year. No staged photos of a lavish dinner, no forced smiles for social media validation. And to her, that might have been the worst loss of all. The plane continued toward Chicago, smooth and steady. I did not know what the future held for them, but I knew one thing. I was done. The messages from my parents and sister had become more desperate. My father's words, once cold and dismissive, now carried a sense of panic. The retirement home will not refund our $150,000 deposit. Our medical insurance coverage ends next month. Because of you, our future is ruined. But right after those words came the same familiar excuses, the relentless defense of my sister, the repeated accusations that I was the problem. It was as if they had learned nothing. I took a lemon from the fridge, sliced it, and dropped it into my tea. Tomorrow, life would continue as usual. I had new research data to analyze for an ongoing pharmaceutical project, a stable $160,000 salary, and well-managed investments. My life was built on solid ground, through my own efforts, not on someone else's money. Outside, the Chicago skyline shimmered against the night. The lights of the towering buildings resembled distant stars. As I glanced at my own credit card statement, I noted a full payment made as always. No debt, no reckless spending. Grandfather's words echoed in my mind. Vanity is for others. Savings are for yourself. I had built a life on independence, just as he had taught me. And now, standing on my own feet, I knew I had made the right choice. The phone kept buzzing, but the voices on the other end no longer mattered. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, in early December, Chicago had its first snowfall. My routine remained unchanged. Work, research, steady progress. Meanwhile, my family's carefully maintained illusion had crumbled entirely. The first sign of change was on social media. Catherine's Instagram, which once overflowed with daily posts of extravagant shopping sprees and luxury vacations, had gone completely silent. The last post was from the day before Thanksgiving, a photo of her designer handbag at a high-end restaurant tagged, "Living the Dream." The irony of it now was almost too perfect. Emails from my father took on a different tone. "I regret how we lived. We indulged Catherine too much, and we were too hard on you. I am sorry." My mother, too, admitted the reality they had ignored for so long. "We never realized how much we relied on that money. Our pensions are nowhere near enough. I finally see how careless we were. Catherine's situation was worse. Unexpectedly, I received a call from her husband. His voice carried exhaustion and disbelief. I found hidden debts. Credit cards I never knew about. We cannot sustain this lifestyle anymore. He was starting to understand what Catherine had hidden from him for years. We are looking at smaller houses now. Public school for Amy. Catherine cries every night. The facade had shattered. Their marriage was on the verge of collapse. In contrast, my life remained steady. I arrived at work at 8 a.m., finished at 6 p.m., spent weekends at investment study groups, and managed my finances without worry. Just yesterday, I had been promoted to lead a new research project. My salary was expected to rise. My investments were thriving. While my parents stressed over their retirement, and my sister struggled under the weight of debt, I was simply living my life. Over the weeks, the frantic calls and emails dwindled. What had been desperate pleas at first became rare, quiet updates. Amy will be taking the school bus to public school. Catherine's message was short, lacking its usual arrogance. The dream of private education she had flaunted for years was now out of reach. Even my parents were preparing to leave their upscale Florida community, moving into a modest condominium. Their extravagant lifestyle had lasted only as long as grandfather's generosity. We have been living by the wrong values for years. That was the last thing my father wrote. Whether they would truly change or not, only time would tell. Last week, an email arrived from grandfather. Waking up to reality can be painful, but it is a necessary pain. Your decision gave them a lesson they needed. I saved the email without replying. Winter deepened in Chicago, and the city lights twinkled against the dark sky. 3 months later, spring finally showed its first signs. My life had only improved. The new research project was moving forward, and last week I received a formal promotion. My salary had increased to $200,000. Investments continued to grow, my financial security expanding with each passing day. From my office window, I could see Lake Michigan glistening under the spring sun. A steady rhythm of work and progress kept me moving forward. A package arrived from grandfather, a small velvet box containing a pearl necklace. Inside was a note in his familiar, elegant handwriting. True brilliance belongs to those who stand on their own feet. Minimal contact with my parents had resumed. They had finally left their gated community and settled into a more affordable home. Though medical expenses weighed on them, they seemed to be adjusting. Luxury fades, but security lasts. My mother wrote in an email, her words lacking the resentment they once held. Catherine's family had moved to a regular suburban neighborhood. Amy was taking the school bus like any other child. Catherine's once frequent social media updates had stopped completely. In a rare email, she admitted, "Posting all those pictures, pretending to live a life we could not afford, it seems so meaningless now." Her marriage remained strained, but at least now, she was no longer living in denial. I had new goals ahead. I wanted to take my research further, lead my own team, and mentor young scientists. On weekends, I attended investment seminars, learning alongside people who valued financial stability over fleeting appearances. Thanksgiving had revealed hard truths for everyone. The importance of financial independence. The hollowness of materialistic competition. The true meaning of family. Grandfather's last words still echoed in my mind. Real bonds are forged only after hardship is overcome. In my desk drawer, still wrapped in its gift box, was the pearl hair clip I had bought for Amy. One day, when she grows up, when she understands that true worth does not come from expensive clothes or social media approval, maybe then, I will give it to her. Outside my window, the spring breeze rustled through the trees, as if signaling the start of something new.